Yo, what's up, friends? Like here, at least like two of you. Oh, where the fuck have you been? Well, sorry. After FF7, I guess I just started playing other games. I completed a couple Personas. Or, well, I say a couple. I completed three, Persona 3. And I'm currently playing through 4 Golden. Both great games. I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, of course. Great game. The Last of Us 2. Anyway, the other thing I've been playing is Hades. This game is fucking sick. And I've become somewhat of a shill, I would say, since this game's come out. And I want everyone to play it. Everyone needs to play this fucking game. It's so good. So, I am just going to go through why people should be playing this goddamn game, which released yesterday, by the way. As of recording this, the 19th. It came out on the 18th of September. So, in the words of Supergiant themselves, Hades is a godlike roguelike, has you sprawling through the lowest levels of Tartarus, and then your goal is eventually to reach the peak of Olympus, or so you think. I've been absolutely loving this game. So in this video, I'm going to rattle off some of the reasons that you should be buying Hades, and you can be damn sure I'm going to sound like a fanboy while I'm doing it. Okay? So let's start off with a brief overview of the story, and why our boy Zagreus here wants to leave the underworld. So Zagreus is the son of Hades, the big boy himself, and his mother, or who we believe is his mother, is Nyx, the goddess of the night. And one night, Zagreus decides to snoop around his father's belongings, finds a handwritten letter from none other than Persephone, the queen of the underworld. And it's here that Zagreus learns of his true mother and his motivations for wanting to leave. So that's why he wants to find Persephone and find out, you know, what his why she left. Throughout your repeated journeys, as you climb from the bottom of the underworld, you'll come into contact with numerous characters whom Zagreus has relationships with, and each time you talk to them, their interactions change depending on the progress you make, the boons you acquire. Sometimes these interactions give you knowledge of other characters in their past, such as a standout one is Orpheus and Eurydice. You get to find out their past and shit like that, and it's a really fun take on all of the Greek gods. I find it's very unique, and it adds a nice bit of flavor to roguelike elements of the game. So in the same way that a game like Persona has that nice balance of like the social aspect versus JRPG combat, you know, like in say Persona 5, you'll go into someone's, were they castles? Oh, the palaces. You'll go into someone's palace and you'll go through that, and most of the time you'll go all the way to the calling card, right? And then you'll come back so you can optimize social time. Like, and then the gap between this palace ending and the next palace starting, it's kind of like you're having fun doing the social aspect and you're kind of feeling, I could kind of go doing some JRPG combat, and then boom, next palace starts. And then when you finish that one, you're like, I kind of want to do some of the social stuff again. Kind of same thing here. It's on a much faster pace though. So you'll do a run and you'll be like, oh, I wonder what everyone else has to say. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, right, let's go for the next run. It's very fun. It's a really, really well balanced. Hades is basically the same as that. So you make a new record and manage to reach a new floor or a new level. You die, and then you go and hit up your bro that is Achilles, and and you find out he's like super proud of you. Achilles taught you, like, Zagreus everything, like how to fight and stuff like that. And Achilles is the bro character. He's always rooting for you. He's awesome. Or you go and see Nyx, and she's always rooting for you as well. She's basically going behind Hades' back and say, like, nah, fuck you. I like Zagreus. We're gonna help him. If he wants to do it, then I'm gonna help him. She is also the character that creates the Nyx's mirror, or the mirror of darkness, that is in Zagreus' room, which basically you'll use throughout the game as you gain the darkness resource, and that will slowly power Zagreus up, like give him access to a second life if he goes down. Every time you enter a new chamber, you'll gain a little bit of health back, shit like that. So in this house we adore Nyx. Plus she's a MILF. Anyway, onto the gameplay. So, as I said before, Hades is a roguelike, and you'll travel through procedurally generated levels based on which level of the underworld you're in. Tartarus, Asphodel, Elysium, so on and so forth. I think actually they might be the only levels of the... I mean, that's as far as I've got. So bosses are included in this rule as well. So when you come across, say, the Fury Sisters, that guard the final floor of Tartarus, you don't know whether it's going to be Meg, Electo or Tisiphone. Sometimes it can even be all three. I had that the other day. It was mainly Meg, but the other two were like throwing their abilities out and stuff like that. It's absolutely fucking nuts. Same rules then apply to the other bosses. Certainly the Hydra, or as I found out yesterday, the newly named Lerny is what Zagreus decides to call him eventually in the game. You have no idea which head or which form of the head is waiting for you. So sometimes it'll be one that has fairly vanilla movesets, like will try and like bite you or do the ground slam, which causes a shockwave. Sometimes it's one that will fire out little like eggs, which if they explode after 5 seconds, they'll spawn more enemies. Sometimes it's one that creates like the bullet hell moves, shit like that. And I think the main head determines the other spawned heads at the phases of the fight. So it's really cool in every single run, even if you don't try and change your weapon or change up or for some reason you manage to get all the same boons. The bosses can even change up a run. So that's also a really, really fun aspect of the game. So this alone, all this stuff alone would suffice for enough replay value. Like, you could play through the game over and over with just these things. But you also have access to numerous weapons, god boons, and also Daedalus hammers. There's also Titan's Blood. Titan's Blood you'll get from killing certain bosses in the game, and you can use them to alter Zagreus' weapons, make them have like different passive abilities and shit like that. So his main sword increases, I think it's his movement speed and attack speed, just passively if you unlock the Titan's Blood ability. But then you can get a weapon that will, for however many seconds after you use a special attack, Zagreus has a increased chance of causing a critical hit. So there's all sorts of different stuff, and that applies to every single weapon, which I'll go through now. So as I mentioned, Stygius. This is like kind of the basic weapon, and the first one you'll have, which is Zagreus' sword. Always reliable, but isn't really anything too special. It's kind of just like, it's a sword. Coronact, which is the bow. So while having a simple concept and moveset, it's actually a genuinely quite interesting weapon, and it's also quite challenging to use because you have to play in a bit of a different way. It's very fun. The unique aspects of Coronact is that when you charge up your shot, so if you hold X, you'll charge up, and you'll see like this flash animation as it gathers in towards the bow. If you fire exactly as the flash gathers up, it does increase damage. And that can also be done when you do like a dash into a move, or a dash into your charge shot. It will increase the speed of the charge shot, so it's all like very feeling based. So that one's got like some, like a bit of a cap to it, which is cool. Aegis is the next weapon. That's the shield. That's right, Weebs, you can be the shield hero if you'd like. Similarly to the bow, it has that timing element for the charge strike, or the bull rush, I believe it's called. However, you can also pretend to be Captain America. So this one fulfills a lot of fantasies, I think. You can basically throw the shield, it'll bounce off numerous enemies and stuff like that. Varatha, the spear. So this long boy is definitely a strong one. You do bonus damage from backstabbing an enemy throughout the game. This is not just unique to Varatha, but Varatha has an ability where it'll throw through and sit on the other side of the enemy, and then you can call it back, which always hits behind. So you can basically have a guaranteed backstab, which is cool. So if you're always after that bonus damage, you can get it. Malphon. Oh, God, I love this weapon. So Malphon is the Twin Gauntlets. And what they lack in range is redeemed over prowess and like combos and damage and shit like that. You play like super... You'll want to be like using dashes all the time and stuff like that. Which, similarly to the way that Coronact makes you play in a different style, it's the same thing with Malphon, but the opposite. So you'll want to be like dashing in all the time and be super, super aggressive. It's very reactive, and guys, it's so fast. It's such a fun weapon. And then lastly is Exegriff, which is an extremely unique weapon. So it's basically it's literally a gun. It's literally a gun. You can fire missiles, which kind of go up and then have a time delay and then hit the ground. But you also have to reload, which is a weird one. So it's like you can kind of optimize it by doing like a dash, and then you'll increase your fire rate for a short period of time. You'll have 12 shots before you need to reload. If you hit the reload point, you could fire a missile, which will automatically proc a reload afterwards. So you can kind of min-max it a bit. It's really cool. I wasn't expecting this weapon in the game at all. When you look at the others, they make a bit more sense, and then suddenly a gun. But yeah. So, look at all those weapons, right? So many to choose from, offering a completely different gameplay experience. Boom! Daedalus Hammer suddenly appears. What is this? Now you have the opportunity to choose one from a list of 3 abilities that will completely alter something about that weapon. Specifically, one of the moves of the weapon. So, for example, the way I said that Exogryph's missile goes up and then comes down, you could change it to a missile that fires out straight, which means that you can kind of play more aggressively with Exogryph, because you don't have to account for that, or like ever. You can just fire a missile straight forward, and it'll always hit. The Fastigious, you can get an ability which reduces your overall health pool by 60%, but every single time you do an attack, you gain 2 health. So, kind of like do you want to go for that? It's like a bit of a more aggressive playstyle with Stygius. There's stuff for Malphion, which causes, instead of his uppercut doing like 2 hits, you can do one where it'll pull in instead, or cause an AoE explosion, shit like that. There's all sorts of stuff that completely alters the way that weapon moves are used. And obviously you can get multiple Daedalus Hammers throughout your run. They are a bit rarer than most things, but you can still do it. Varatha can get like a move where at the very tip of the spear, there's like an extended hitbox, does way more damage. So Varatha can make like a very spacing-based playstyle. So if you like that kind of shit, super precision-based, Varatha having that ability is a really fun one. But you get my point. There's a lot of shit that Daedalus Hammer offers. But we're still not done. The gods of Olympus, they hear that Zagreus wants out. He's fucking sick of this shit. He's pencil-pushing Hades, goddamn son of a bitch. And they believe that Zagreus' goal is to join them on Olympus. And obviously he's a relative of theirs, so they're like, yeah, come on, join us. So throughout your run through the game, they'll offer you certain boons, which will alter abilities or give you access to new abilities. And you'll come across tons of them from numerous different gods throughout your run. And they vary in like different effects and levels of potency. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over all of the gods in the game and what they kind of give you on the whole, not everything. So Zeus grants you abilities that access lightning, of course. Of course, he's the god of the sky. Mainly in the form of a bouncing lightning bolt, which releases every single time you attack. So you can get this for your cast attack as well, which is your B button, when Zagreus throws that little like blood diamond. If it hits, it causes an electrical bounce. This is really, really good for the early levels of the game, like Tartarus. You'll come across enemies like the little skull heads, which like take 1 hit. So having Zeus boons is really, really good. Do not fall into the trap of thinking that Zeus boons are the best in the game, though, because I swear to God, I think everyone falls into this. I did as well. You're like, yo, what? This causes every single time I hit for a lightning bolt to proc. This sounds incredible. But you'll get to like the later stages of the game and be like, I'm not really doing much damage here. So they are good, but just bear in mind, don't go all in on Zeus, okay? Next is Poseidon, and he grants access to abilities that mainly cause like knockback. Paired with his other skills that can cause a slam, which is basically when you knock an enemy back, if they hit a wall, that causes a slam, and Poseidon can give you access to increased damage on slam effects. And obviously, if you already have abilities from Poseidon that cause knockback, it's incredibly easy to cause slam effects, which does absurd amounts of damage. So Poseidon, he's really fucking good. Artemis next, she specializes in giving your attacks more critical strike, and also causing critical struck enemies to become marked, which further increases the potency of said critical strikes. Not as flashy as some of the others, but certainly very good. And as you go against like bosses later in the game, if you're increasing your damage, you're essentially always increasing your like critical strike values. So you do want stuff like that, you know. This is like the opposite of Zeus, right? Doesn't look flashy, but it's really good. Ares next, he offers skills which will outright increase your power, like your special and your attack will just do flat out percentage increased damage. It can also alter the cast ability from Zagreus. Rather than being just like the blood orb that goes out and sticks in an enemy, it will cause like a spinning chakram, which moves slowly, and can cause loads of damage over time. So you can get it on your dashes as well. So every time you'll dash, you'll leave a spinning chakram. So you can do like cool shit under a boss where you'll do like a double dash, like forward and back, so that the blades sit under the boss, do damage all the time. Really cool. It's a really cool ability. Lastly, he will give you access to the Doom Curse. And when this is afflicted on enemies, after a short period of time, there's a big spike of damage. Dionysus, I think that's how you pronounce it. I call him Dionysus. I think it's cooler. Didn't rate him at first, but my god, his abilities are really good. He basically gives you access to the Hangover Curse, which is essentially a damage over time curse that procs every half second. So when you afflict someone with Hangover, every half second they'll take a spike of damage that can then be stacked. So this is one of the gods where you want, like, if you have like a high rarity Dionysus boon and you're against a boss and you can stack up your Hangover, this one you'll really feel it. It's so powerful. Then there's Athena, first god I ever ran into in my playthrough, and I might even say that in mine anyway, I feel like she's a mandatory pickup. Mainly, she will offer the ability to deflect enemy projectiles. So numerous bosses in the game will have like a bullet hell stage, or there's even rooms where you'll come into, say, they're like, I think they're called like the witches, where they constantly cast, or the rooms where Hades will summon a ton of enemies and you have to survive for 45 seconds. Eventually the rooms will just fill and there'll be projectiles everywhere. So if you have, say, Athena's deflect dash, then you can constantly just take advantage of that, because when you deflect a projectile, they will always home back in on their caster. So you can do really cool shit with Athena's power-ups. She will also give you access to the Exposed Curse, which increases your damage from a backstab. So that's real good. Hermes, he's a speedy boy, so of course his boons act the same. Hermes offers like reduced recovery time, increased overall movement speed, and also the ability to actually like have a dodge chance, which is cool because nothing else really offers that kind of stuff. He's very unique. Demeter, you won't meet her until a bit later in the game, but she offers some really strong stuff. Mainly the Curse Chill, or the Chill Curse, which slows enemies. You can even get it to a point where it can cause them to shatter, and it will spread the curse further on surrounding enemies. Very powerful ability, and similar to Dionysus, it stacks. And this one you'll feel incredibly on bosses, because it basically gives you a whole new, like, your movement is now even stronger because they're slowed. Obviously the effects don't last as long on bosses, so you have to keep on reapplying, but like, it's not that hard. Lastly, Aphrodite, lovely lady. I can't wait to meet her. She offers some of personally my favorite boons. Like, I always pick up Aphrodite boons if I can get them. So despite not being all that flashy, similar to Artemis, they are more passive abilities. She grants Zagreus the ability to inflict the weak curse. On top of this, she also will increase your overall damage, like of specifically your attack or your special, depending on which boon you pick up. And weak will cause enemies to inflict less damage to you. At minimum, 30% less damage to you. So if you're against bosses and shit like that, hard-hitting enemies, you always want weak, because you can just reduce the amount of damage that you ever take, which is incredible. This can then be extended. Obviously, it doesn't last that long. I think it's like 3 seconds at minimum. Obviously, you reapply it quickly. But you can increase the potency of it to reduce damage further incoming to you, or increase the duration that it lasts on enemies, and that's all done with picking up extra Aphrodite boons. She has a lot of passive ones, so you can kind of afford, you can afford to pick up more Aphrodite boons than, say, like stuff for Zeus or Poseidon, because a lot of those are quite active ones, so you'll be replacing other stuff. Anyway, I think I've gone on long enough, right? I've rambled enough about how fucking incredibly fun this game is. It's extremely stylish, so fun. No two runs are ever really the same in the game, and it's such a cool and like unique and personality-filled take. Zagreus is best boy. Some of his interactions are fucking amazing. The dude is such a cocky asshole, but I love him so much. All right, if I can't convince you, go and watch the animated trailer. It's amazing. Whoever animated that bit where he flicks his hair back after he comes out the death pool, they knew exactly what they were doing. Anyway, go and play the game. Peace, boys.